This video is for anyone who is going through a challenging time right now. So I just heard a story about someone that has IBD, that's an inflammatory bowel disease, not to be confused with irritable bowel syndrome. Just, a sad story as to what happened there, and I'm not going to get into the details. But I also have IBD. I have Crohn's colitis. It's like IBD indeterminate between ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. And I want to do two things in this video. I want to talk about, number one, the experience of going through unfair challenges in your life. And number two, some things that I think will actually help a lot of people that are going through health conditions, health concerns. So let's start with the second one, actually. This is something that's very difficult to talk about because it can be misconstrued as victim blaming, really. And it's not victim blaming. What I have seen, I've met dozens and dozens of people that have IBD. It's really cool when I have viewers that reach out and tell me about their story, and we connect on that. But I actually used to go to a lot of these support groups with CCFA, Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of America. And I did that for the first few years I had the disease, and I was in college at UCLA, a few hundred miles away from home. So, I couldn't really rely as much on my immediate network. So I was trying to, find other people with the condition and just learn. And I was just a pre-med. I didn't know shit about medicine or the human body. Pre-meds don't know anything about the human body, really. The stuff that you learn in college classes is so rudimentary. And I was also, in my first 2 years, this is before I even really started getting into the more upper division stuff anyways. But even back then, I tried to learn and research and understand what is going on in my body and what could be the possible things that'll help. And I'm also very lucky that my mom shared a similar kind of, approach to things, and she and I would discuss different options. And what I noticed in these support groups is that certain people were a lot more casual with their approach. And that's not right or wrong, but when it comes down to what is going to get your autoimmune condition or whatever chronic illness that you may be facing, whatever's going to get that under control, you're probably going to have to do some level of education and apply yourself and work hard trying to figure this thing out. Some people are fortunate. I know one girl that went to school with me in high school. This is before I got sick with IBD. I later found out, or rather I later connected with her after I got IBD, and I asked her, hey, what helped? And she was fortunate in that she just outgrew it. She had it in a mild condition when she was younger, and then when she got older, she was like, yeah, it didn't really change anything, it just went away, which is awesome, right? And the casual approach there really worked. But I remember a few things that stuck out to me. And there was one guy who swore by just eating Burger King for his IBD and said that that was the best thing for him. And I understand that different things work for different people, but I find it highly suspect and incredibly hard to believe that Burger King was really the best diet for someone that had IBD. And I know that different people have different sensitivities, but having ultra processed food like that is not the answer. And the reason he told me is that anytime he had vegetables, it would cause issues. Now, when you start digging into that deeper, what you'll learn is that, well, fiber, especially insoluble fiber rather than soluble fiber, when you are flaring, is going to be very irritating to your gut wall because it's already inflamed, and insoluble fiber is extra. I mean, it's unprocessed fibrous material. It's going to cause literal friction. And it's going to cause pain and worsening symptoms. But if you cook your veggies really well, or if you have soluble fiber, or if you have even uncooked insoluble fiber when you're not flaring, oftentimes you're going to have a very different experience. I just remember this guy he wasn't interested in learning any of this or trying any of these things. What I'm trying to get at is that there are unfortunately many cases of various conditions, autoimmune or otherwise, whereby no matter what the person did, they could try as hard as they did everything by the books, they experimented, they did all the elimination diets and yada, yada, yada. And unfortunately, they still have a bad outcome. And that sucks. And it's heartbreaking. But there is also a subset of people who are just not, they're not applying themselves enough. And again, this is not to victim blame people. I'm not trying to say that, I'm not trying to say that if your disease is out of control or things are not going well, that is your fault. But there is a big subset of people out there who have these conditions that could be putting in more effort. And it's like, it's sad to see that too. I think the former case is obviously a lot more saddening to see because like they try all these things and they're still just SOL. But there are so many people that give up. And if you give up, if you throw in the towel, if you say, hey, I am just going to eat my Burger King, or I'm just going to, life's not fair, this is hard, you're only punishing yourself. You're not punishing the disease. You're not getting back at anyone. You're just making your life worse. And why would you do that? And I understand that there are some psychological states where, you know, you hate yourself and self-harm and whatever. And there's times for therapy and there's times for journaling and there's times for self-reflection and all those things. But I think what's more common than that is just giving up because shit is hard. And I get it. Shit can be really fucking hard. So going back to these support groups, I always felt like I was trying harder than most other people there. And a lot of people maybe talked about a few different medications they tried. Maybe they talked about what their doctor told them, which, let's be real, I am an MD, I am Western trained, and I also acknowledge how inadequate Western medicine is when it comes to diet. It is laughably bad, which is why we have these movements, functional medicine and such, that are trying to be a little bit more informed and progressive. Even just a few years ago, my GI doctor was telling me that per the evidence, per the literature, the data suggests that diet does not impact your autoimmune gut condition. I was like, I am ingesting pounds of foreign matter that is in direct contact with my gut lumen. Your skin and your lumen, your intestinal lumen, is really the only two things that is in direct contact with the external environment. So in the same way that putting something on your skin can irritate your skin, cause an allergic reaction, etc., you're telling me no matter what I eat, it doesn't impact my autoimmune gut condition that is in contact with the actual food, the foreign body. That makes zero sense. It doesn't take an MD to tell you that. In fact, the MDs are telling you that it doesn't matter. It doesn't take a rocket scientist. It's just common sense, man. This is the hard thing to even talk about because, like, I just remember in these support groups, people would just accept what they were told by their doctor or their nurse practitioner. By the way, I had a nurse practitioner when I was in residency who was assigned as my provider for GI. And look, I think, not to get into a whole mid-level discussion, mid-levels have their place, but they do not have a place for independent practice. And after I taught her many things about IBD and just the literature and all those things, which is like, obviously not, the patient should not be teaching the provider. The provider should be adding value to the patient, not the other way around. I politely told her, hey, like, no offense, but I need to be seen by an actual ND because I'm clearly teaching you a lot of stuff you don't know. And I'm guiding my care right now. And I need to bounce ideas off of, I was a PGY1 at the time, right? First year in residency in plastic surgery, not even in gastroenterology. Or rather it'd be IM and then 3 years GI fellowship. But essentially I was very underqualified and I was still teaching someone who was supposed to be an expert, right? So that's a whole nother story. But the point there is that no one has all the answers. So you can't just put full blind faith into what someone told you. And I think that in a lot of these support groups, I get it. It's hard. You're constantly pushing against this thing and it keeps beating you down. And I have moderate to severe IBD per my GI doctor in 2008 when I first got diagnosed, in 2009. And we could not get me under control, under remission for a few years. And it was tough. And I'm already not... This is actually me at 180 pounds or 175, which is like the most I've ever weighed. And back then I was still 6'1", but 130 pounds. Not in a good spot. And I was on steroids, corticosteroids, not the fun anabolic ones, the not fun steroids, which give you moon faces and a lot of acne and mood swings and muscle wasting and just not fun. Looked really malnourished back then. My girlfriend teasing me that before my bulk, I also looked malnourished, but I actually looked malnourished back then. And I guess what I'm trying to say here is that if you do the work, it's not guaranteed to work for you. Again, you may be one of those people that just, you have shitty fucking luck, and it's heart-wrenching and heartbreaking to see those stories where they put in so much effort and they just shitty luck of the draw. But there are so many people out there that are just not putting in the work. And I get it. Life's not fair. You got dealt these cards. It wasn't your fault. All those things. For me, it was actually very likely related to dermatologist when I was in high school that gave me doxycycline for acne. And dude, I was on that thing for like years. Such a big no-no. But I'm 16. I don't know that. They just said, hey, take this for acne. I'm like, okay, cool. See me again in 6 months or a year. Okay, cool. This is working for you. Let's give you some more. Very irresponsible. And if it wasn't for that, it would have been a lot less likely that I would get IBD. But anyways, can't change the past. And even if it may not be my fault or I didn't deserve this, so what? I got dealt that hand, so what am I going to do about it? So I, ever since the beginning, have put a ton of effort into getting on top of this. Because it fucking sucks. I remember at the beginning, I didn't even want to eat in the cafeteria. I actually lost a couple friendships, which at the time was painful, but now in hindsight, it's like, well, if these friends can't understand that I'm dealing with a chronic lifelong illness and I don't want to eat in the cafeteria with them because it's really hard for me to watch other people eat food I cannot eat, because I was eating literally white rice with chicken breast with salt. Very plain diet in a way to try to not upset my stomach. And before that, I was also on like a liquid diet for almost a month, which is not fun either. So I tried really hard. I put in a ton of effort. And I was very disciplined with my diet. I tried specific carbohydrate, keto, vegan, gluten-free, tried a bunch of different things to try to get on top of this. And then I'm working on stress mitigation tactics. I'm working on sleep, on exercise, on the things that we know are good for us, but we tend to deprioritize because life is hard and life is busy and whatnot. And I'm happy to say that after all these years, I have been very well managed. I've had hiccups here and there, and I've had flare-ups, and things haven't always been super smooth. But overall, a lot better than I would have expected. Again, I'm not going to say that this is just because of my effort, because there are certain people who would do the exact same thing and have worse outcomes than what I had. But I think a big part of it is due to all the intensity and the effort that I put into it. And it's not fair. I remember Dr. Ahmed Pandi, my best friend from med school. This was in the first 2 years, the preclinical years. He'd be like, dude, you go to these Remicade infusions. I was really hardcore back then. So, I go to these Remicade infusions on Sundays. We have our test on Monday. You get wiped out because after a Remicade infusion, you are just completely exhausted. Or at least I always have been. And I want to just sleep the rest of the day. And I get these every 6 to 8 weeks. So you come back and you still do well on these exams, and you're still powering through. How the fuck are you doing that? And I was like, well, what option do I have? I can complain about it, bitch about it, and be like, oh yeah, I got below average, but that's because, I have a reason though, guys. I had to do no one fucking cares, man. No one, your excuses don't matter. And what I told him is this shit's like rocket fuel, man. This just pushes me to go harder. It's not something that makes me want to go lighter. Yes, I need to spend more time driving to and from the clinic or the hospital. I need to spend more time when I'm exhausted or when I have greater sleep needs because my body is being done attacking itself, right? But even though it drains me of energy, wastes more time, it makes me want to push harder. And this is the kind of fuel, the negative fuel is not something you should rely on for too long because it can be corrosive. You're holding the hot stone and burning your own hands, right? That's what people often say when it comes to, being angry at someone. Same thing when you're using anger to fuel yourself. But yeah, a big part of it when I was in my 20s or my late teens when I first got sick, up until probably my mid 20s, I got into plastics before I left. A lot of it was negative. A lot of it was, I feel broken and I need to compensate to prove that I can do not just as much as you all you not broken people, whatever that means. Again, teenage logic, but I need to overcompensate and do more. So I was always a good student. I'm not going to I remember I have this med school insiders video, which is still up. That's like my story to med school. And someone close to me watched that video and they were critical of it. They're like, Kevin, I get it. You're trying to be relatable, but also you should keep it real. Like, you always were a strong student, right? It's not like you were some average C student that then learned how to be A plus. Even though that sounds like a cooler story, they're like, no, dude, you're always a good student. So I'll admit, yeah, I was always, even in high school, like I was one of the top students for sure. But I was like embarrassed of trying too hard or whatever. And then in college, I was like, yeah, fuck that noise. I'm going to try really hard. And again, a lot of it was that negativity and having to overcompensate. But that effort applied to everything. Like, there was just greater intensity in my life after that. And I think part of it too might be that if you're watching this and you have some illness, some chronic disease, then you probably realize the finiteness and the fragility of life, which most 18-year-olds and 20-something-year-olds and even early 30-year-olds just don't get. Like, you feel invincible because you've never had health issues and you just bounce back from injuries and you don't even really get injured that often. So it makes you realize how short and fragile life is. And I remember someone else close to me would be like, dude, if you know how short life is, and I used to believe that I might die younger too based on X, Y, and Z, and stupid thing that I don't believe anymore. But like, yeah, if you think that your life is gonna end sooner, then why do you work so hard? And why don't you try to spend more time enjoying yourself? And I was like, well, I'm not going to enjoy myself if I just sit on a beach. And like, I need to, as based on how I'm wired, and I think a lot of people feel this way, especially men, not only men, but especially men, simply because I think men in particular are valued in society based on what they can produce and achieve and what value they can provide. So I'd be like, dude, I don't want to just sit there and try to enjoy myself. That's a miserable existence. Every time that happens, I feel restless and I feel rudderless and aimless. So I just want to approach life with intensity. I want to work really hard, because when you have these peaks, both good and bad, that's like the richness of the human experience. So I want to work really hard. I want to struggle. I want to, like, I actually look back favorably upon those crazy 19-hour back-to-back week-long shifts in my away rotations, because it was fucking tough. But I got to see what I was made of. And then in residency, doing 32, 36 hours without sleep, because it's tough and I don't want to do that regularly. But when you do hard shit, when you overcome IBD, when you go through these dark moments, come out the other side, when you can handle the crazy week of doing 19-hour shifts back to back, or doing better than you thought on various exams based on whatever obstacles you faced, you now have these reference points to say, hey, I can do the hard shit. So the next time that there is some obstacle and some struggle in your way, you say, hey, you know what? I can handle this. I've done a lot worse. I rely on that a lot. When I face difficult times, which happens for everyone from time to time, I say, oh yeah, this is hard. And then I think back, I'm like, dude, if immature 18-year-old Kevin could handle that fucking shitstorm that happened, which was IBD, 2 months later, parents split, 1 week later, move into a 1-bedroom with my mom and brother, sharing a bathroom, one single bathroom with 2 adults when you have freshly diagnosed IBD is a lot of fun. So if I could do all that and get through it, then, oh, dude, this is a fucking piece of cake. And I've always said that you generally get around imposter syndrome by not faking it until you make it, by doing the hard shit, and by building the evidence that you are who you say you are. But when you go around and beat your chest and, you fake it till you make it, that's when you're like, oh shit, people are going to find out I've been faking it this whole time. So the other part I wanted to talk about was how it is very much the human condition to push against something, to struggle against something. I have known people very closely who had picture perfect lives. Came from a family like trust fund kids that grew up in incredible neighborhoods, had incredible parents that I was like, damn, I wish my parents were that cool. That had very functional families, like, damn, you guys don't even fight. This is so weird. Really perfect lives. But every human needs to push against something. It's a very unavoidable thing, unless you become some monk that's meditating in the mountains. Maybe they get around it, right? And when you keep that in perspective, you can then appreciate your own struggles for what they are and not blow them out of proportion. Because if even the person that has the picture perfect life can face such turmoil and struggle over seemingly insignificant things, from the outside at least, when the person complains about these things, you're like, wait, because the Airbnb host left you 3 stars, because there was some water around the tub, that's causing you this much distress and this much of a crisis? Like, it can seem ridiculous to you, but it's all relative. In the same way that me complaining about, if I were like, man, IBD sucks, and it does suck, but it's not the worst thing in the world. There are other people who'd be like, dude, I would kill to be in your shoes where all you have to worry about is just IBD, right? It's all relative. And it's not a race or a victim Olympics as to say who was wronged the most or who deserves the most sympathy, because that's nonsense, dude. You don't want to be pitied. But it gives you perspective when you think about not just the people that have it worse than you, but the people that have it better than you that still face so much suffering despite having everything handed to them. And it's not even that person's fault, the person who has the perfect upbringing. I say perfect. No one's upbringing can actually be perfect, but the one that is as close to perfect as humanly possible, right? It's not really their fault that they're more fragile or they're not very resilient or, they're easily thrown off balance. That's just their environment. If you were born in their shoes, you'd probably be the same. And similarly, when you have hard things happen to you, like when you actually hit rock bottom, I remember this when I was 18 and on the really high dose, I was on like 80 milligrams of prednisone. My mood was, oh my God, it was up and down. I was like, I feel on top of the world. I'm going to crush this. And then, oh my God, I'm so depressed. I am going to end my life. And it was just really crazy moody. And I remember thinking that this is rock bottom. And I have 2 options at this point. And only 2 options. I either sink or I swim. This will either become the anchor that pulls me down, that holds me back, that is my crutch, that I play the victim card on, that limits me, such that the illness wins. Or this is my rocket fuel. This is my superpower. This is the thing that I use and I twist it and I alchemize that shit. I sublimate it is the actual term used in psychology to make it a strength. And it's obviously just to cope. But like, what would you rather do? Would you rather be like, well, on an objective level, my life is worse in these 42 different ways? Or would you say like, well, my life is actually better in these ways. I'm a lot closer with my family now because hard times bring people together and you start to appreciate people in different ways and it brings out different aspects of people. You're more disciplined. You're more driven. You see a vision. And I'm not religious, but at the time I was like, you know what? Because this is first year of college, just a few months in, and I was toying between computer science, because I loved programming in high school, or becoming a doctor. And I was like, oh, which one do I do? Which one do I do? And when I got sick, even though I'm not religious, and even though I was very aware that this was just like a cope of a way to add some structure and meaning and positivity to an otherwise very negative situation, I was like, well, this must be the sign that the universe, or God, or whatever you want to call it, is pointing me in the direction that I need to become a doctor, because I was so driven to become a pediatric gastroenterologist, because I thought, first of all, the gastroenterologist that first diagnosed me sucked. The guy did not even spell Crohn's disease properly, dude. And luckily I found a really, really good GI doctor a few years later. Shout out Dr. Tesfaye in Walnut Creek. I actually have him in a couple of videos. He did my colonoscopies and did a video where he was in that. And super cool doctor. But the first two GI doctors I had before him were horrendous and taught me what I did not want to do when I became a doctor and what I did not ever want other patients to experience. And I was so motivated to become a GI doc, and pediatrics in particular, because I was thinking to myself, it's so hard for me as an 18-year-old to do this. It must be even harder for the children, right? Who have this, who can't have ice cream. I don't know why it really bothered me that like kids couldn't have ice cream that had IBD when they were younger. Because they have to be on restricted diets, and I don't know. I just remember that was like a big thing for me that made me feel really sad. Like kids not being able to have ice cream. Maybe I really liked ice cream back then. I don't know what it was, but yeah, I don't know what it was, but yeah, you alchemize that, you sublimate, and it's really the only option you have, because what is the alternative? Do you actually want to be a massive victim? Do you actually want people to pity you? Do you actually want to constantly have excuses and say, yeah, I didn't live up to my full potential because of this, this, and this? They're valid reasons. You can be totally right. But the thing is about the truth is that it's a sliding scale. People pretend like the truth is this one point right here, and it's not. There are boundaries to truth. I can't say that I am Superman, but I can say that I'm better off due to the struggles that I faced, right? So there's these boundaries. I can't say I'm worse off due to the struggles. Like, where do I want to choose in this boundary, in this spectrum of truth that actually serves me? You have to choose the story that actually serves you. Otherwise, why would you choose any other story? And pursue the truth, which is why you don't go beyond these boundaries. So don't be delusional, but try to always find the ways that you benefit from the things that don't, at least on the surface, seem to go your way. And I love that Chinese proverb, right? The horse and the broken leg and the guy in the army and all that stuff. It shows you that nothing is either good or bad. It all depends on how you frame it. You don't really know in the moment. You don't know until things unfold. And it's not like you passively wait for things to unfold. You are the agent that is determining how things unfold, right? So for anyone else who has a chronic condition, I know that it sucks a lot of the time. I find a lot of value, or at least I found a lot of value back when I was struggling with it, to look to others that had the same condition, that were like me, that overcame the odds. And I love that book, Alive and Kicking, by Rolf Benerski, or however you pronounce his last name, the retired NFL player, quarterback. Because that showed me, hey, if this guy can do it in the NFL of all things, very physical, with a physical disability, right? And even the word like disability, I like rejected that for so long. It's like, yeah, I guess technically it is a disability, but I mean, whatever that word means to you is what you make of it. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I can't do things. It's just like, hey, it's like, my gut doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Not a big deal. We need to add so much more story to it. That's all it means. And yeah, dude, I actually remember it was third year of med school, and halfway, like there are certain days on rotations where you do a half day in the hospital or clinic, and then you have to come back to the med school to do didactics. And I remember one time I couldn't find parking. And I just kept driving around and around, but it was like midday at a university campus is usually very hard to find parking. Early in the morning or late in the day is fine, but midday, this wasn't happening. And there was one time when I had to go. Like, my stuff was not acting the way that I wanted it to, and when you have IBD, you can have very high urgency. So I illegally parked, handled my business, came back to my car, and luckily there was no ticket. But I was obviously very stressed, like, oh my God, I'm going to get a ticket, I'm going to get a ticket. And I told my GI doctor the story, and he's like, dude, we can totally give you a placard. Like, you have a legitimate condition. Because then there's always plenty of disabled spots around. And I remember being like, no, dude, I don't want that. And then eventually I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. But only a temporary placard. I don't want like a permanent one, because I don't believe I have it. Like, I was like, I didn't want the identity of a permanent placard because of what I thought it meant about who I was or what I could do. And it's just so silly in hindsight, because it doesn't mean shit, dude. It's whatever you make of it. So for anyone who has a chronic condition, you're going to have ups and downs. And there are going to be times when you feel like the shit ain't fair. The shit sucks. Why is it so hard? And that's normal, man. Don't beat yourself up. Feel it. Feel those emotions fully. Let it get messy, whatever you need to do. Either by yourself or with someone else. You know, talk things out. Keep it to yourself, whatever you want to do. And then when you're done, once you got it all out, you brush yourself off, you pick yourself up, and you get back to doing what you're supposed to do. It's not going to be easy, but when you look back, it makes for such a better story anyways. And the person you become in the process, it pushes you in ways that you otherwise would never have been pushed. And there's some value there too.